I'm Dawn Rees, and I'm a Humanist celebrant. And I'm a celebrant for weddings, vow renewals, and also for baby namings, actually, which goes beautifully with weddings, because hopefully couples remember you after you've done their ceremony, and then they want to come back to you to do their baby naming as well, which is fabulous. Along with everybody in the industry, really, not just celebrants, but florists and venue owners and everything. It's been a pretty terrible year, really, hasn't it, for everybody? And it certainly wasn't the year that we were expecting. So this year I was due to perform 33 ceremonies, and I've done one very small, socially distanced, but very special ceremony. So that's been a big change for me, and that wasn't what I was expecting this year. But I'm really busy next year. It's been challenging. Next year's going to be really busy, no holidays for me next year. So a Humanist celebrant is a celebrant who's trained by Humanist UK. And we deliver ceremonies, all sorts of ceremonies with no religious content. And that is the defining feature, if you like. If you've got a couple who do not have a faith, don't have a belief, and do not want any reference to religion in their ceremony, then often they will choose a Humanist celebrant, or they'll choose an independent celebrant and say, we don't want any reference to religion in our ceremony. So I was trained by Humanist UK, which is a human rights campaigning charity, and we provide weddings, funerals, namings, leadings, celebration ceremonies for anniversaries, vow renewals, those sorts of things. And in terms of being a celebrant, then we have to be trained by Humanist UK, and we're accredited by them. We have to demonstrate that we've kept up our continuing professional development. We have to have our practice observed and be re-accredited every 3 years. So it's a pretty tight, and we're insured also by Humanist UK. So it's a pretty tight ship in terms of the organisation and how well supported and trained the celebrants are. And I happen to specialise in joyful situations like weddings and vow renewals. And I love it because it plays to my strengths. You know, I love being with people. I've always worked with people. I'm an executive coach in a parallel universe. So I really love working with people, and helping people through this year in particular has been really difficult for everybody, couples, celebrants, Humanist celebrants, other suppliers. But I feel that in a way, although it's been a dreadful year, for me, it's played to my strengths, because that's the sort of work I've done for many years, working with people in crisis and communicating with people and helping people find solutions to difficult problems. I work really hard with my couples to make that connection with them, such that at the end of every month I send them, you know, everybody has an email saying, this is where we're up to, this is what I've been doing, you know, how are you, this is where we are in the latest guidance, you know, give me a ring, let me know what you're thinking. Just keep that relationship going, because normally as a celebrant, you know, your relationship might last about a year with a couple, from start to finish. Sometimes it's much shorter, but now of course that relationship is extended. I've got one couple who booked me in 2018 for this year, and they've postponed their wedding to 2022. So I will actually have known them for 4 years before we even do their wedding. I keep in touch with my couples every month and saying, this is where we're up to, guys. You know, different from where we were this time last month, and it either looks more gloomy or it looks more hopeful, but the message seems to change every month. So because you haven't got any ceremonies, every ceremony, individual ceremony has a rhythm in terms of its planning and, you know, what you're doing when, in terms of the time approaching the ceremony. And that takes on a rhythm over a whole year or 18 months. But everything is like on hold. And so I'm missing that rhythm of building, not building attention, but building the number of tasks that go towards reaching a conclusion, which for me, the conclusion is actually 3 weeks before the wedding, because I always complete the writing 3 weeks before the wedding, so the couple don't have to think about what we're going to do in the ceremony in that 3 week period, because you know what it's like, that last 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks before the wedding is crazyville. And so I always complete everything 3 weeks before. And so I'm missing that, really, missing that rhythm, missing the excitement. And it's like you're suspended. You don't have any sort of natural conclusion to each relationship as new people come on board. Everything is being held and nothing's being concluded. It's really frustrating for everybody. Well, there's all sorts of elements that you can bring into a ceremony, which I call, and many celebrants call, I didn't invent it, symbolic elements. So if you were to go to church, everybody would know what the ceremony is going to look like, what it's going to sound like. There's going to be a hymn, and there's going to be a this, and there's going to be a that. With a humanist ceremony, you have to build in that structure. And I like to build pace and humour into my ceremonies. But I also, by pace, I mean, you know, some things will go faster, some things will be funny. But then as we get towards the element where the couple take their vows, I like to change the pace, pull it back, so that you've got a contrast between the humour and the readings and all of those things. But then we move to the really serious bit, which is the couple promising themselves to one another. And so I talked to couples beforehand about, you know, would you like to build some symbolic elements into your ceremony? So I asked my couples if they'd like to build in some symbolic elements, and I suggest some that they might want to choose from. So one is quite a funny one, and it's that thing about, you know, and I begin to talk to the guests here. I say, you know, guys, we all know, don't we? We're standing here today and it's going to be a fabulous, and they're going to make their promises to one another and everything's beautiful. But you know and I know that at some point it's going to be difficult, and they're going to be grumpy, and they're going to go to bed and not talk and go harumph and turn their back on each other. So here's a little idea, and this is what I call the bell of truce. But I get the couple to just imagine remember how they feel today when they're, you know, got this special day, and how beautiful it is. And then to think about when they might be really cross with each other, and how a blooming argument can go on for weeks, or it can in my house. And really all it needs is one thing, one person to have the courage to ring the bell and not even have to say sorry. Just say, okay, enough's enough. That's it. This is the bell of truce. These are hand fasting ribbons, and we can't do a demonstrate hand fasting here because of social distancing. But I did one just a few days ago for a couple. It's my only wedding of the year, and their family did the hand fasting in their social bubble. And essentially I asked couples to think about the characteristics of their relationship that are most important to them, that they want to endure for the whole of their relationship. So the only wedding I've done this year was just a few days ago for a couple who had been together for 30 odd years, and they'd met at school. They were childhood sweethearts, and they had been married for 25 years, and they were very much in love. And 8 years ago, one of them came out as transgender, and then did a full physical transition from male to female. And they stayed together as a couple, which is astonishing and very courageous. And we did a vow renewal that was also like a wedding, because they wanted to celebrate their 25th anniversary. They wanted to celebrate their relationship as a couple surviving, not just their relationship, but their love. And they wanted to celebrate Stuart's transition to Sue, and they had a very small, socially distanced ceremony, and we did a hand frosting, and their family bubble laid the ribbons, and a very good friend of theirs who's also in their bubble did the final knot, if you like. And it was, I would say, one of the most moving and privileged things that I've done as a celebrant, I put the rings on this plate of oak that my husband made for me to use in ceremonies. In fact, he made that stand for the ribbons as well. And I always use a plate for the rings, mostly because I do a lot of outdoor weddings, and I have an absolute horror of the best man or the best woman or the best friend taking the rings and putting them into my hand and me dropping them. Yeah? So I always ask them, this is bigger than my hand, so I've got something bigger to aim for. And then I ask the couple to take the ring, when they're doing their vows, to take the ring from the plate. And actually in Celtic times, oak represented constancy and strength in relationships, so it's quite a nice link. Sometimes I will use a ribbon like this, and I'll thread the ribbon through the rings like this, and I'll tie it very loosely in a knot. I won't do that now. And we pass it around the guests, and they warm the rings with good wishes. So that's sort of a bit of an explanation of some of the many symbolic elements that you can build into a ceremony. We've talked about big weddings, small weddings. What do you do if you go small? Our couple's going to be really disappointed if they have a very small ceremony. And of course, some of them will be. Some of my couples actually have actively chosen now to have small ceremonies next year, but some really want to get on with their ceremony within the restrictions that we are experiencing at the moment. And so I'm making an offer to my existing couples that if you want to have a small ceremony within the existing constraints re-COVID, then let's do it. And if you want to have your big party wedding next year, the year after, let's do that as well. I've already written the ceremony, and so long as it's within 50 miles of where I live, and so long as it's a date that I can do, I will do your small ceremony, just your very close friends and family there. And then I'll do the big one, and we'll just incorporate that all into the price. There won't be an additional fee. But don't do yourself out of the party, We'll do the big one as well. So long as I can do the date that you want, I'm more than happy to do that. And we do it all again. What could be better? 2 lots of cake.